most of you came here because of the rumors around related to our labor negotiations, so we decided to change the order. We're going to be introducing issues and speakers, and we would address this issue right away. And I'll ask our counsel, Mr. Ginman, to come here and to brief us on the extent of the union negotiations. We can dispel all the rumors right away.
Good evening. Let me start by saying that there are some things that we can talk about and some things that we cannot talk about. The reason for that is twofold. One is that we are involved in negotiations, and that carries with it certain restrictions on what can and cannot be said. The other is the National Labor Relations Act provides that certain statements and certain actions by an employer can be considered an unfair labor practice. So there are certain things that we are simply not allowed legally to discuss, and I won't be discussing those. Let me give you a little bit of background, historical background, so that you understand what has happened to now. Most of this is what I would call public record. It's well known. We have been negotiating with Local 124, which currently represents a majority of the employees of the Galaxy, for almost 2 years. The Galaxy has a negotiating committee. So that you know, 2 of the 3 members of the negotiating committee actually have a background as labor organizers and involved in labor unions. I started my legal career, and for the first 10 years of it, represented labor unions and handled collective bargaining and legal actions on behalf of labor unions. So we have an extensive background, ironically enough, historically from the labor side. We have made a number of proposals, the union has made a number of proposals. During this process, several issues arose which we are trying to address in the appropriate forum. The first is that the 2006 and 2009 contract contains in it certain language which the union now objects to. That contract includes the right to subcontract. We are currently involved in an arbitration as to what exactly that means. In addition, Local 124 was challenged by another union, Teamsters Local 966, for the right to represent Galaxy employees. An election was held. Local 124 won that election. The Teamsters challenged that election and claimed that Local 124 acted improperly and violated the law. A hearing was held before the NLRB. The hearing officer for the National Labor Relations Board agreed that Local 124 violated the law and has ordered a new election. There is no date for that because Local 124 is appealing that. In addition, Local 124 was, at the beginning of negotiations, associated with a union in New York called the IUJAT. It is no longer affiliated with that union and is apparently seeking new affiliation. During the course of negotiations, one of the topics that has been negotiated and is being negotiated is what's known as outsourcing. Now I'm going to tell you some general things that don't necessarily apply here, and so I don't want anybody to think I'm talking about specifically the Galaxy. The overwhelming majority of condominium associations that have the type of staff that exist here, multiple dwellings of many units, as opposed to, there are obviously some condominiums with only a few units and they have a superintendent. However, the staff here varies at different points in time between 80 and 90 workers. The overwhelming majority of condominium associations do what's known as outsourcing. Outsourcing is when you hire a company that specializes in employing the type of people who work in the condominium. Why do certain condominium associations do that? For a number of reasons. One is because then you enjoy what's known as an economy of scale. A bigger organization that supplies workers to many condominium units can do it on a per unit cost that's less expensive. They can spread out their insurance costs, they can spread out their legal costs. Here, you pay all of the legal costs. The union has filed over a dozen unfair labor practice charges against the Galaxy. It has filed over a dozen arbitrations for employees who are discharged or otherwise disciplined. And they have engaged in 2 years' worth of negotiations. All of this costs you money. You also pay workers' comp insurance, you pay contributory insurance for taxes, you pay administrative costs, you have payroll costs. All of these costs per employee become less the larger the organization. So for that reason, there are organizations that specialize in going to condominiums, office buildings, not just condominiums, office buildings, all kinds of units, and saying, we will supply the workers to do the work. Then you don't have to pay all these associated costs. In the course of negotiations, now I'll take you back to the Galaxy. In the course of the negotiations, in doing their due diligence, and in fulfillment of their fiduciary responsibility, one of the things that the board has looked into is the relative costs and benefits of outsourcing. The union has taken the position that it will not even discuss with us outsourcing. We have offered, the negotiating committee has offered to talk to the union about that process, about what happens if there's outsourcing. And let me just tell you, for example, outsourcing does not necessarily mean that everybody who works in a particular building suddenly no longer works there and all new people show up the next day. What the outsourcing companies traditionally do is set up a process with management where they interview the existing workers and make a determination as to which workers they're going to keep and which workers they're not going to keep, and under what circumstances. As part of negotiations and in an effort to find what is the most efficient, what's the most cost-effective, and what's the best way to provide the services to you, one of the things that the negotiating committee has asked the union to negotiate are those kinds of terms and conditions. In other words, we said, well, if the board decides to outsource, let's talk about the process by which that would happen. Let's negotiate the terms and conditions, set up the interview process, things like that. The union has said, we will not talk to you about outsourcing. At the last negotiating session, the president, James Bernanone, walked out of the meeting and refused to continue with negotiations. So that is where we are as of now. As far as the rumors are concerned, I think it's fair to say, I don't know what rumors are going around. You can never tell what rumors are going around. The facts are the board has not voted to outsource. The facts are that the current contract, we believe, contains the right to subcontract, which is the same as outsourcing. That we intend to continue that process, to explore that process, and that if the same services can be delivered to you at a reduced price by changing the name of the employer on the paycheck to the employees, and there's a net savings to you as a result, the board has a fiduciary obligation to explore that. That is what is going on. The union does not want to discuss that and does not want that to happen. That's understandable from their point of view. That's about all I can really say about the process and what's going on. I don't know if you want to take questions at this time, or if you want to add something to it. Okay.
This process and this negotiation has been going on for more than 2 years, not under 2 years. And actually it's been going on since 2006, because when I joined the board in 2007, this language was already introduced in our contract. It was negotiated by then our general manager, Susan Fitzpatrick, and then our attorney, corporate counsel, a labor attorney, Mr. Plasko. We did talk to Mr. Plasko, we interviewed him recently, and he specifically told us that the intent then in 2006 was to put it in contract and to seek opportunities to not to be direct employer. That's another word of saying outsourcing. It is very difficult to employ people. It is significantly easier for association not to employ people and to just employ organization. We've done some research, some analysis. We brought in a number of companies, and the savings are significant. I mean, a very conservative estimate. It's not actually an estimate, it's a number, very conservative. The saving could be $800,000 on an annual basis for same services or even better. The companies we met are non-reputable, been in business for many, many years. So they be quite confident that if the board will choose this route, that the services will not diminish, a number of people will not be reduced, and everybody will be introduced, and there will be a 60 to 90-day period where this new company comes in. If we choose to go this way, interview everybody, and the transition will be very, very peaceful without any stressful events. So this is something which we have to consider and something which we're seriously looking into. And at the last session, board instructed negotiating committee to present the last and final offer. It doesn't mean much apparently. It is called last and final offer. So this is about it. And at this time, if you have any questions because of the important issue, we will just stop presentation. Oh yes. I did receive phone calls from a couple of unit owners, and they use words like union busting. Just to explain how it all came about, fortunately for us, this board managed to leave our political views outside of the boardroom when we engaged in this process. And we made a commitment that it's not going to look, smell, appear, or be a union busting. All the companies we interviewed, the most puzzling issue that the companies we interviewed all, if we choose to bring them in, will provide unionized labor. So employees will have medical benefits, employees will have, I do not know the scope because we cannot really negotiate this at this particular time, and we will not be able to, because once you make this decision, you give the right to manage to somebody else, you do not intervene. We cannot tell them, please save this employee or that employee. It would be considered illegal, right? Yes. So, but yes, I'd like to stress that if we choose to go this way, we will have unionized labor here again. But at the savings of, as I said, $800,000. It is the very conservative estimate because the savings are slightly higher, because the footprint of Cooper Square will be reduced. One of the interesting things of this particular managing companies, they're very heavily staffed in middle management. This is exactly what we do not have here. We have upper management and we do not have any middle management. And when they come, if they come on board and present this middle management here, we would not need some positions with Cooper Square. So savings would be slightly higher. And these difficult economic times, we are seriously considering every single opportunity. And so that's about it. Any questions? Please. Since we are taping everything for the viewers, and speak very loud.
All right, I'll speak loud. So, just to understand, there's no legal reason why we can't outsource now. We've negotiated in good faith. It's been over 2 years. We could walk away from the union if we wanted to and go with outsourcing. Is there a legal reason? If there's not a legal reason, will we be opening ourselves up to exposure from lawsuits from the union or the NLRB or whatever other entity there could be?
I'm not going to answer the question about whether or not we do or do not have to continue to negotiate this point. I will say that we are continuing to negotiate. We are still in negotiations. We have asked the union to sit down. We asked the union to sit down and meet with us this week. They have not responded. They have not agreed to meet with us again.